our tip for this week is going to focus on acceptance. If I can get my slide to advance, give me just 1 second. There we go. And the idea with acceptance is to acknowledge that there are events that we cannot control and to find ways to still move forward. Perfect opportunity to think about acceptance. We are all in a situation that we have very little control over at this moment. When we're working through the idea of doing new things, whether it is taking inclusion to the living room, as we just talked about, and having your children at home all the time. Perhaps it's having a partner or roommate at home all the time when you're not used to sharing that space 24 hours a day. Thinking about how we're doing work, how we're interacting with people. There's just so many facets of life in this moment that feel somewhat out of our control. So why is acceptance an important resilience skill to focus on? And it's to improve our focus and our performance and or productivity. I don't know about you all in this room, but I have found myself struggling with productivity because I get so distracted with many, many things that are happening in my brain. I try to sit down and say, okay, I'm focusing on this right at this moment. And as you experienced in our meeting last week, my son came running to the door screaming, "Mommy, Mommy." And typically we have systems in place for that, but sometimes things just happen. And so then your productivity changes or your performance changes. The other thing about acceptance that's important is reducing anxiety, depression, and for some people, chronic pain. Ironically, I had a really stiff neck this weekend because I carry a lot of stress in my neck. I don't know about the rest of you, but I get tension knots in my neck. And oftentimes I can't turn myself to the right because it's so stiff. And that was happening this weekend. And so I think those times of all of those emotions build up and we have those physical chronic pains. I see some head nods, so I'm definitely seeing that others are relating to what's happening there. With acceptance, what we're trying to focus on is there's two pieces of it. One of those is, let me take a step back. I've shared this graphic with many of you before. I'm sure you've seen it before. And the question is your mind full or are you mindful? My mind is full right now. Raise a show of hands in the room. Anybody else feeling like your mind is very full? And seeing the picture where we're trying to be mindful, it looks amazing, right? Clear skies, the sun is shining, there's a few trees out there. They're seriously practicing some social distancing in the mindful picture because I don't even see any people in sight. And being an extrovert, I love being around people, absolutely. And I'm yearning for a moment by myself somewhere right now. So I don't know about anybody else. Thinking about those moments of how do I take my mind from being so full and so cluttered to having those moments of peace. And so our team, Greg and Philip and Carrie have all shared some amazing mindfulness tips, and I'm going to let them kind of have the experience of sharing that with you. But I will talk with you about the mindfulness because acceptance has two pieces, mindfulness and meaning making. The majority of my time today is going to be spent on that meaning making piece. As we've talked about, mindfulness is a mental state of awareness. Openness, focus, it's being present. It's recognizing when you're having those negative thoughts that interfere and disengaging from or reframing your thoughts. So I loved what we were talking about with meditation. I appreciate meditation. It oftentimes takes me 10 to 15 minutes to do it because my mind being so full takes a long time to disconnect and disengage. I'm one of those people that I struggle with kind of shutting off all of the outside noise. So I love meditation, and I know I have to give myself a little extra time to be able to do it. I don't know about the rest of you, because I often am running through all of the things that are happening. So we know about the mindful piece, but the meaning making is thinking about really how to clarify a difficult situation. How do we understand this? How do we grow and benefit from the adversity that we're experiencing or the challenges that we're experiencing? Finding meaning in challenges by seeing it as a growth opportunity. I oftentimes find that piece of as a growth opportunity. When you're in it and you're having all of your feelings, when you're in your strong feelings, it's often difficult to find that growth opportunity. It's often difficult to see it. Sometimes this is another one of those skills where we sit down and we look back on a similar situation, or we look at other times when we were successful about making meaning of a situation and using those skills or those keywords to help us to really move forward. So how can you make meaning of your current situation? As we sit here in this room, 30 of us all having different situations, yet they might be similar, we have to try to make meaning of what's happening. So I'm going to have us do a small exercise. Again, this is going to be a personal exercise. There's going to be no requirement to share out, but I want you to think of a time when you faced a challenge and you grew personally or professionally from it. So just kind of take a few minutes, think of a time. You can jot it down if you want to. Was there something that happened to you that was unexpected? And as you were going through it, you just didn't understand. Perhaps it could be someone in your family with a health concern. Perhaps it was your own health concern. Maybe there was an employment situation where you were caught off guard and it was unexpected. Perhaps it was a change with your spouse or partner that impacted the way that you were currently currently working. As I've shared, as many of you know, I'm a military spouse. And so, sometimes you get that surprise news that comes up that you weren't expecting, and then you have to figure out how to sort through it. Like maybe it's a deployment, or perhaps it's a change in duty station and you're moving. So just kind of think of a time that you faced a challenge and that you grew personally. The second part of this is, how did you find meaning in it? What was it? What were some things that helped you to go, okay, this is difficult, this is hard, and this might be why it's happening, or this is what I can do with this situation now that I know, or I have more information. It's that, again, resilient skill that we're working to build on, is how did you find that meaning? What was it that really helped you to get over the hump and start to see this as a growth opportunity, as a positive experience instead of such a negative event? When you're thinking about that, step 3 is I want you to write down any keywords that might help you with your current situation. So I'm gonna share an example. There was a time in my earlier life when I had a career and I was working for an organization that it was a change of career for me. I had worked in child and youth a majority of my time, and I had switched over to doing more like family support. And I had been working in that job for a while, and then suddenly there were some changes in personnel, and I ended up having to be almost like riffed back into my child and youth position. And although that was difficult for me, I was very disappointed at the time. I had a lot of emotions and feelings because I didn't feel like I had done anything wrong. It just, something had happened. And after I had an opportunity to process through my emotions, I started to be able to see I gained some important job experience in that job that when I went back into child and youth, it helped me to be a better supervisor. It helped me to be a better trainer. It helped me to know more resources to help the population and the people I was working with. So thinking through what were those keywords, and so having to look for the silver lining may be another way to look at this, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a silver lining in many places. You want to look for that. So in this time of being at either a stay-at-home order or a safer-at-home order, we might all still be adjusting. And I have taken the opportunity to go, the meaning of this for me personally is I have slowed down a little bit and I'm enjoying some more time with my family, with my children. We're having a Yahtzee tournament right now. And so there are things that we didn't do before that we're doing now. And I would suspect that maybe many of you are experiencing that as well. And I think the next step of that meaning making might be, what do we want this to look like moving forward when we all move back into new patterns and routines moving forward? So mindfulness and meaning making can help you to recognize new possibilities. It can help you grow in your relationships. It can help you renew your appreciation for life. And it can help you understand kind of your own enhanced personal strength. How many of you have said to yourself, I don't know how much longer I can do this? How many of you have leaned on a friend and said, I just need you to kind of help me think through these things, or have reached out to, or gone out to the internet to look for some resources to help you? One of the things about mindfulness and meaning making is you start to understand your own abilities and then what you need to help support you through that process, whether it's a team approach, an individual approach, just knowing that being mindful of those events and then taking the steps to try to understand and make meaning of something that can be difficult when it's outside of your control, and knowing that you can have these 4 amazing things on the screen, you know, new possibilities, growth in relationships, appreciation for your life, and just enhance understanding of how you are strong and capable and wonderful in those experiences. So thank you for letting me have a few minutes with you today.